This podcast is brought to you by Iron Temper Supplies. Iron Temper Supplies are the people behind the Iron Gate International Tattoo Convention happening in Sydney, November 3rd, 4th and 5th at the Hordern Pavilion. It's a convention that Australia hasn't seen before. It's on such a huge scale. It's invite only. Everyone's handpicked. So it's quality and quantity. There's people that have never been to Australia before coming for the first time to tattoo at this convention. There's food trucks, there's competitions, there's exhibitions. Come down November 3rd, 4th and 5th to the Hordern Pavilion in Sydney for the Iron Gate International Tattoo Convention. Welcome back to the True Love Tattoo Podcast. Today I'm joined by Gummy Johnston of Thanks Tattoo in Sydney. Gummy, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me here.
So happy you're here. Got so much to talk about. But first, I may as well go from the beginning. How'd you get into tattooing?
So I grew up on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and I had a fascination with tattooing quite early and was like drawing a lot of tattoo sort of imagery and stuff. But being from a small town, there wasn't a lot of opportunities there. And I just started getting tattooed basically once I turned 18. There was a guy in town from America actually called Joe Schmo who was getting around. He was working in Brisbane, also down here at Chapel. And he made friends with guys in Caloundra, and they started getting tattooed by him. So he was coming to town, and then when I turned 18, one of the boys took me down to Brisbane, and I got tattooed by Joe. And long story from there, basically going through all the trials and tribulations of getting tattooed. And I never thought I'd be a tattooist, even though I'd maybe secretly into it myself.
What did you think you were going to do?
I was rendering then. I was a solid plasterer.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, came out of school. All my friends that were getting tattooed at the time too, they were solid plasterers.
Right.
Making good money. So I went into that from high school. And then basically, yeah, we were just all this, it was a big thing on the coast, hardcore scene, sort of big tattoo sort of culture started to evolve in our generation. And one of the guys, Koza, started tattooing at Ink, down at Ink Attack in Medina under AJ. And he got to a point where we were all getting tattooed by him a lot. And then he got to a point where he was moving on to start his own shop. And I was hanging out with him getting tattooed. And he actually let me make a tattoo with him one day on my leg. Yeah.
Just randomly, just like, hey, you want to
hit
give
him
it a
up.
crack?
I said, could I have a crack at it?
Yeah.
He was, he was cool enough to let me do that. And he set up a machine. I think he drew up the stencil, pretty sure. I did my stepfather's last name on my knee, just above my knee.
Yeah.
And we just set up and I made a tattoo. And then I was helping him with sort of like getting his shop together, helping him out with some little small things like just helping out with some business plans and for the lease. And then he got a place and he started tattooing there. And I snuck my way into the industry. He was allowing me to tattoo from home in a way, not saying he was condoning it, but he would let me clean my tubes at his studio.
Right.
So I'd come through and so Jamie Randall, who tattoos at Victory Tattoo, he'd got a tattoo kit from Contar from Tattoo Supplies. And after I made my first tattoo, I was like, we can make tattoos. Like, we should start making tattoos. So he was my first victim, I think, after myself. Like, he got brutalized.
What were you doing on him? These stars?
Nah, it was a light bulb.
Yeah.
Can't remember what it said now. It was fucking chunked up, like I ripped it in his thigh. It was pretty bad. So yeah, then he let me use his kit for a bit. So I was tattooing from home on friends.
Yeah.
On Edwardian and like just some, I don't know, some fiddler stuff on people. And then I'd take my tubes to the studio, I'd clean his tubes and that was my payment for cleaning my tubes and chucking them through the autoclave. Basically, I kept saying to him, I want to work. And he's like, nah, I'm not putting any apprentices on. I don't need any, like, don't need that stress. I quit my job rendering and I started at a bar so I could put all my focus into becoming a tattooist.
Yeah.
My mate that I was living with at the time, he was working at a bar. He didn't want to work there anymore. I took his job, took his RSA, which is like that responsible service thing, and I put my name on his certificate. He was really good at Photoshop. Gave it to the bar. Like, oh, how'd you go on this question? And I'm like, oh yeah, I nailed it, like 100% straight through. Like, no way, like took us. I'm like, well, I did look at the certificate there. Told you I did it right. So.
Yeah.
And somehow I got through that. And then Koza was in a position where he'd lost his license on the weekend and he was like, mate, you've got a car, I need to get to work every day. And can you pick me up, take me to work? And I was like, easy. So I think even actually just before that, I turned up to work on a Monday or a Tuesday, probably the Tuesday. Obviously, Mondays were probably shut still then. At 10 o'clock, and I waited there till maybe 12:30 on the doorstep waiting for him to turn up. And then he was like gracious enough to let me drive him to work every day. And I just stuck and I didn't leave the shop. And I just fucking didn't take no for an answer, I guess, from the start. And I just kept going to work every day. And finally, I had a chair.
Just kept turning up.
Well, not a chair, but I was allowed to watch him work all day.
Yeah.
I sat like religiously by him for about a year, just watching him tattoo all day long. And he was so good at tattooing and he was like effortless at tattooing. So it sucked when I started tattooing. I couldn't make tattoos like he could. He was just just make a tattoo. And I found it a lot harder. So I had to work hard on my I still do now, but just doing that. So that's how basically it started. That was in Mooloolaba. Yeah. It was called Mooloolaba Inc. at the time. Now it's called Foundry Tattoo. Mm-hmm. It's gone through a couple of locations since then. That was 15 years ago now that I started with him. And he's still going on, kicking goals non-stop and doing great tattoos.
I saw in a previous interview you've done, you went to the States at some point.
Yeah.
And it was like super impactful on your career.
Sure.
So when did you leave Mooloolaba to go to the States?
So I was with Koza for 5.5 years. Mm-hmm. At the end of that time, there's the Sunshine Coast. You got to remember when I started tattooing. Then we were the first shop to open. That was in a bikie controlled area. We were the first non-affiliated shop to open up, and it went through its different phases throughout that 5.5 years that I was there. There was a lot of stress on not only Koza, but the rest of us, the staff that worked there.
Is there a lot of tension being
There's a bit of stuff going on. Like it wasn't say directly, to us all the time, but it was sort of scary. Like there was things that there's some rules that were made that we have to maybe, don't leave the shop without 2 people. You don't work by yourself at any time. And there was no, we didn't know there was just a lot of, I guess, tension in the air.
Yeah.
And that caused a lot of tension in the shop. And when me and Koza had finished our time together, basically he's like, what are you thinking about doing? I was like, I don't know, I might just go see the world. I'd wanted to move for a long time, and to then respectfully to Koza, he kept me at the shop for my period of 4 years, which was what our first agreement was. And we got to maybe a 3-year mark. And I think like a lot of tattoo, I felt like I was ahead of myself a few times. I think I took a few too many steps forward and wasn't quite ready. And I really respect Koza for bringing me back to ground a few times.
Yeah.
And that's hindsight you see once you become an older tattoo.
I feel the exact same way. There was so many times where I'm like first guest spot or whatever. It's like looking back at it now, I'm like, that's fucking insane. Like I was not ready for that. Yeah. But you just, it's pretty easy to get, once you start doing tattoos and you get wrapped up in it a little bit, you get, especially in a smaller town as well.
Sure, definitely.
Feel like big fish in a small pond a little bit, and then you're like, I'm going to do this. And then as soon as you do it, you're like, fuck, I'm not ready for this.
Totally. And I think it's not a bad thing. I think you've got to challenge yourself always and push forward. Otherwise you won't go forward. So luckily I've always had that determination to always push myself and not be too scared to jump in the deep end. But I've also had some pretty amazing people around me that have also held me back. And I'm not saying in my ego way of like getting outside of my ego, more just in my ability and maybe my pursuit of going forward. I've sometimes just taken bit off a bit more than I can chew.
Yeah.
And so when that time finished up, basically just went to the States. Me and the missus had a really nice car back then that I bought off Benno, Switchfoot, the 1960 Chevy Bel Air. I sold that, funded my 3 months over there, basically just tattooing from town to town. So spent me and the missus 3 months just traveling around the country and checking out tattooists, meeting some really amazing people that I looked up to a lot, and meeting some people that I didn't know about that taught me heaps. So that was pretty pivotal for sure. Just sort of.
Did you have like much of a plan, or you just kind of went over there and just winged the whole thing?
I had one convention like locked in for Austin.
Yeah.
The Texas Star.
Mm-hmm.
Once I'd done that, I met a bunch of young guys that were similar age that were doing like they did this full tattoo circuit around America at the time, and they were like, "Oh, where are you going next?" So I said, "Oh, I'm heading towards New York." I had a friend in New York. They said, "Well, got to go to Philadelphia," and I said, "Oh, I did try that actually, but it was full." And they just go anyway.
Yeah.
So I got there and there was a blizzard, so some guys couldn't fly in. So I got a phone call on the Friday night of the convention starting saying, "Hey, there's a spot. Would you like to make a tattoo?" I think I started my first tattoo that night at 9:30.
Yeah.
After dinner, and from there met some more amazing people. I met Eli Falconet, which was R.I.P. to him. He introduced me to a manager from Thicker Than Water in Manhattan, and they go, "Oh, you're going to New York? Where are you working?" I was like, "I don't know anyone in New York." And Antonio was nice enough to be like, "Hey, we'll work at my shop."
Oh.
It was they were doing a Valentine's flash day, so I jumped in on that and spent a month in New York, and then went through Chicago to see my friend Schmo that had tattooed me, and then off to Salt Lake City, and back to LA, and it was really cool.
Did tattooing in America feel any different to tattooing in Australia?
There was a big community. Excuse me. There was a big community that I really enjoyed it. It was coming from the coast. We weren't allowed to talk to other shops. That was just that old mentality of the time. Me and Sam Arrowsmith were quite good friends. He worked at Ink Attack. But other than that, and I think he was working with us at that stage too, but other than that, we didn't have much talk to other tattooists outside of other shops, So in our hometown, that is. But I loved being in America where tattooists from each shop would join up that night and paint flash and talk and have a beer, and it was that was a really cool thing. And I also noticed a lot of artists were working in multiple shops then. They'd work 2 days here and then 2 days there because that's where the work was for them at certain times of the week. And that was just something that opened up my mind. And then starting to meet, I guess then starting to see where tattooing came from, I guess, in a way of the traditional stuff that I was interested in, where the image basis came from and where it evolved to what the artists were doing at the time.
Yeah, I think a bunch of listeners might not be aware that a lot of like traditional imagery didn't come from those tattooers' imaginations. It was like from postcards or circus posters or matchboxes or all that sort of stuff. So like when you're over there and you're familiarizing yourself with, the Bowery or the Pike or all those sort of locations where a bunch of the old shops were, there's probably a lot of things around there that these images were based off.
I like that too, because I call it like Chinese whispers. So like, that tattoo design's been getting made for 120 years. In that time, this artist took it and he didn't have a direct copy of it he might have a rub-in or an acetate from someone. He's taken that, he's redrawn it, and then he's redrawn it and redrawn it and redrawn it.
Yeah.
And it's gone on through the whole time, like it's maybe like 4 or 5 generations. And now it's got to this point where the tattoo's it's still recognizable to the original, but it's changed, like, the wolf with the tongue out, the calling panther, whatever it is. And I like going, if I can, and I don't always get the opportunity, but like to go back to the original image if I can. That Instagram page, Tattoo Origins, is awesome to
Tattoo Origins.
Yeah.
And like, I love just doom scrolling Pinterest and trying to find those vintage advertisements, and because I think that there's like that classic like downward crawling wolf with its tongue out, and that's from like an ad from some magazine for like poisons or something.
Sure, I can't remember. I think that, and then there might be the panther might be from a soap ad. I think maybe.
I think the Crawling Panther is a children's book.
Is it right? Cool.
And it's Minutes, Myths, and Legends.
Yeah,
It's sold out everywhere.
Yeah, so
It's
it's pretty cool.
Tattooers have bought it. Yeah.
Maybe the wolf's from a soap ad. Maybe I could be.
Oh yeah. I think you're right. I think the wolf is from a soap ad. So yeah, you're going around, you're making connections. You sort of.
It could be a movie poster. It could be whatever.
Yeah. So how long you were in America for 3 months?
Yep.
And you went everywhere.
Did a big
coast to
circuit.
coast.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we headed back to. We actually headed back to Australia from there.
Yeah.
And I went and did the Rites of Passage convention in Melbourne. We were moving. So actually, when I was in the States, Reece Gordon had reached out saying that he was opening up Little Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure too. This might have been me jumping the gun. He said if I want to come down to work, I could come work or something there. I took that as a job offer, I think. And I pretty much said, hey, we're moving to Sydney. And I don't think we've ever clarified that, me and him together. But either way, I was like, okay, I've got a job in Sydney. I'm going to work in Sydney after my return. And which has always been, I guess, a fascination of mine. Sydney as a kid, I thought was a big smoke, and I was actually born in Dubbo. I lived there till I was 10 before moving to the Sunshine Coast, and Sydney was where the football was played, where the monorail was. Like it was like man, like I know I remember going there as a kid, and that was like a massive deal for me being from a small town of Dubbo. I just wanted to see if I could make it in the big smoke. So when Reece reached out, if it was a guest spot opportunity or a full-time job, I took it as an invitation to move to Sydney.
Show up and then you just don't leave, just like
exactly,
the apprenticeship.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's me. I might maybe indirectly be stupid enough just to be like make myself part of the furniture. I guess.
Gummy the stain.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm stuck there. Can't get rid of me no matter what you use. So I went and did the Rites of Passage convention. And actually, I met, that was a pretty cool convention because I turned up and I was like, hey, I'm not going to drink this convention. I'm being focused on tattooing now. Yeah. Probably the first time I kind of realised that my drinking was getting in the way of my work at times. And so I stayed sober the Thursday night and the Friday night, and I didn't work Friday or Saturday. Yeah. I was like, man, this is not working. So I went to the bar on Saturday afternoon and I basically turned up Sunday pretty hungover. Morgan, the machine builder Morgan, he'd moved into my station. He was good friends with Matt Jordan that was next to me, and he was selling machines out of my station. And I turned up like maybe a little bit late for the Sunday, being hungover, and he's like, "Where have you been, mate? I've got a list of people that want to get tattoos." So I made all my tattoos on the last day, and my little joke to myself back then was like, that's what happens when you take yourself too seriously and try and do the right thing. Yeah. You don't get any work, and then you turn up hungover and not in your best at your best capacity, and all of a sudden you got too much work. Yeah. So I did that convention. I actually met Mayo that weekend, which was a really cool pivotal moment of my career too. He's been really helpful in a lot of ways to I guess inspire me and also just to support and sort of push me forward, as has Reece as well. But so then I went to that convention, so I flew back home. Got in the car and we drove to Sydney, and then sort of started working at Little Tokyo at that stage. So
in the Bondi Junction location.
Bondi Junction for this. I guess it's the second sort of location. He had the private studio on Bondi Road, and then he moved to Bondi Road Beach. Bondi Beach, and then he moved to the Junction. Then after that, Yoshi, I think Mark was there then. Mark Lonsdale.
Nerida Nicholson?
Nerida was there. So I think Mark came a little bit later, just after me. But it was a cool little, great little shop and good little introduction to Sydney, because Reece obviously has such a, he's built a good community there too, with being able to talk to a lot of tattooists. I got to meet a lot of tattooists there, and that was really cool. That
was a cool shop too. I remember going there, and the stairs where you walk up, there was the finger waves on one wall, and then Mayo's calligraphy.
I was actually lucky enough to be there for both the paints of that. So when Mayo helped Reece paint the finger waves, showed him how to paint them on, and then watching Mayo work there was the first time I got to see him do his work in live too. It was cool.
So what year was this?
Okay, my memory's pretty the timelines. I think it's 2014.
2014.
Yeah, so it'll be now 2000. Yeah, that'd be correct, I think.
Then you go on to open your own shop.
So I basically it was a private studio at the time, and I didn't have clout around Australia, let alone like my hometown. I could book out a couple months maybe, but being in the Big Smoke, I had no clientele, so I worked with Reese for 3 months, and then I hit him up one Sunday. I said, "Mate, I'm going to come grab my gear," and I think he thought that I was quitting because of another reason. Because he had offended me, but he hadn't offended me at all. I just realised I couldn't. There was people that wanted that seat, and he was building that was the start of Little Tokyo, sort of growing to a full studio, and I knew I was taking up space there, and there was other people that could make money for him, and so I basically knew I had to hit the streets for a bit and work some street shops. I left him and I worked at. After him, I worked at a clothes factory packing boxes for a bit because I couldn't. I'd hit up some good shops, and I think I wasn't. My ability was definitely the same thing. My ability was not there, and I'd hit up some good shops for a job. No one was interested in taking me on at the time, and that was a good thing for me to learn. It took me a long time to still even learn that. My ability came as just from working harder and harder and harder, but I could have been putting more into my tattooing, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't take any of that as a disrespect. It was more just more of a check, check yourself. And I went and worked at a factory packing boxes for a second at an assembly label. It was like a fashion label.
Yeah.
And I was so bad at that. I would send out boxes to Myers and David Jones with like the wrong quantities of styles, and those poor bastards would have lost money me being there. I felt bad when they paid me the check. I was like, oh man, I probably cost you more than this. Anyway, then I ended up working at King's Cross Inc. Mm-hmm. And I got to work there with some really amazing artists. Anku, who was a really established artist at that studio before going to Lighthouse. Vic James was there. He was awesome too. And then Beth Lonsdale ended up coming and working there as well with me, which was really cool. So that was my first time working at a shop with other, because obviously Reese's was a little more tight knit, like closed door sort of private studio, and this was a street shop.
Being in the Cross, this is post lockout laws.
This is just after lockout laws have come in, yeah.
So, because King's Cross has got that reputation where it's like Max's Village, Sleeve Masters, where they'd be open till crazy times in the morning, drunk people coming in, getting tattooed and stuff. So the shop that you were at, if it was after sort of the lockout laws, wasn't so much the case.
Wasn't. So when I turned up to the shop, there was a few guys that had been working in the area for a bit, and I remember one of them saying to me, he goes, "What are you here for the last gasp of the Cross, are you?" And it was kind of true.
Yeah.
The work wasn't like it had been at the time, where it was like really super busy. But we were still open late, and the other thing I had to get over was the so-called like the rules of tattooing, where you might have to jeopardize a bit of your morals to work in that space, because if you weren't making tattoos on some people and doing some dumb tattoos on some people, you weren't going to make any money. And you're there to do a job, make the shop their cut so the shop can be open, and also so you can pay your rent and live as well. So that was one of the guys said to me, he goes, "Mate, when you get to that door, leave your morals out the side, walk in and start making tattoos." Right. And as much as that was the truth, I obviously was able to keep enough of my morals to be happy, but you had to sacrifice a few little things here and there.
Yeah, definitely.
A bunch of drunk guys at 2:00 in the morning wanting to get the Bucks' initials on their butt. You're going to make some good coin doing that. And if you're not tattooing drunks, or I don't think there was any too much questionable stuff done, like in the ways of actual stupid tattooing, but just tattooing people that might have had a regret the next day. But they're getting them on silly spots like their butts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was that classic sort of Bucks party sort of style person coming through at that time of the day, and
they're all psyching each other up. They've just come out of the pub. Right. Well, there's a tattoo shop right
exactly
here.
Right. There's 15 of us. We can't get in the next pub because it's either lockout has happened or they won't allow us in any other pubs. Let's go get tattooed.
Yeah, I tattooed a girl once years ago, and she, on her 18th birthday, she was in Adelaide somewhere, and she left the pub, and there was a 24-hour tattoo shop next to the pub. Yeah. And she got Semen Demon tattooed on her lower back. There
you go. Really?
They spelled semen wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is not to call her out in any way, but there was a saying at the time at the shop, you get what you deserve at that time as well. So not in any way to point a finger at her, but you
Wild. It's
at that sort of
they're
time
the
of the
decisions
day,
that are being made.
if you're getting the tattoo at that time, maybe, yeah, I don't know. So,
Yeah.
There's definitely been some dumber things done at that time in the morning. I'm sure. And I've done
100%.
many of those dumb things at that time in the morning.
If anything,
well.
it's almost like better for her that it was spelt wrong.
At least,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a navel tattoo.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly anything, yeah.
So you went from, did you
Yeah.
then go from King's Cross to?
King's Cross to Bondi Inc. I went to Bondi
Okay.
Inc. for a year and 1 year, 1 month. And that was probably, I guess that's where I built my clientele in a way. I was living in Bondi. A lot of my friends were from that area. So I was a bit more accessible to them. They said it again, if you meet anyone from Bondi, they stay in Bondi, they don't leave Bondi.
Yeah.
They're like, what's west of the junction? They don't know, you know. So that was a bit easier for me to tattoo, say, my clientele basis that were from that area. So that built me up there. And then when the shop came about, Four Eyes, Rick Vaughan, he'd be talking about a shop that he knew that was for sale. It was up on Oxford Street. It was called Bill R's Custom Tattooing. I didn't really have any. I had desires to own a shop, and in hindsight too, it's like I don't know, owning shops. It's all palm trees until you get it, I think.
Yeah.
But, at the time, I wasn't actively searching to buy a shop or to own a shop. And when this came up, it was an opportunity that kind of was sort of, you couldn't pass it up in a way. So Rick was talking to the guy, and it sort of came about, and I went in with him, and we started Thanks Tattoo on Oxford Street in the first location, which was above like Vinnie's there. That shop had been there for about 24 years. A lot of history to that shop, even in the ways of AJ's Needles and Pins was its first, and this could be a little incorrect, but I'm pretty sure it's right. AJ's Needles and Pins, which was a jeweler called AJ who was making jewelry, and then Puncture. I think that Puncture was not Puncture. Sorry, that was the piercing shop from Queensland. Piercing Urge.
Yep.
Was making the piercings there.
Hmm.
Happy was tattooing out of there. Who went around the corner to Burke Street. Duncan from King Street was making piercings there, from my knowledge, and even like Loz from 7th Circle, he had made his first tattoo at that studio,
Right.
using Happy's equipment, which was pretty cool to hear. When he came through the shop one time, he told me that, and so that was there for so long, and then Bill took it over, piercing there. So yeah, the Piercing Urge went around the corner to Crown Street. Innovision was on the left side of Crown Street. Piercing Urge was across the road. When Piercing Urge closed down there, that's when Innovision moved across to the other side of the street. Bill stayed where he was, and he had it for 18 years.
That's so long.
Before we took it over.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was he was just a blue collar worker. Him and a guy called William Street Pete were working in the studio at the time when we took it over.
William Street Pete.
Yeah, I don't know much about William Street Pete's story. He owned for a second a safe tattoo on William Street.
Okay.
Who Wally Hammond one of the Hammonds had opened. I get them both confused a little bit sometimes. He owned it for a second, and that was considered the cross back in the day. So the cross was Darlinghurst Road, and William Street was considered as a cross. So I think that's where he got his name from, William Street Pete. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So over the years, Thanks is, you've grown it. Four Eyes left. Now it's just you're the man. And like you've done a bunch of things with Thanks since then. Like you've moved locations now from that location.
Yep.
So now you're underground. You've got that basement level shop on the corner of Crown and
Crown and Oxford it is, yeah. So the old studio it was a really cool studio, and it had been there for a long time, which was nice. It was in an old sort of terracey looking sort of shop upstairs, but we only had if you remember, the exposure was a door on a street full of signs and shops, so we got lost pretty easily in the crowd there.
Yeah.
So having this new location, we're on the corner, basement downstairs, but the entrance is on the corner, so we've got great exposure from all directions there.
My money, I reckon it's one of the coolest shop fronts in Australia.
Fortunately enough, I'm good friends with Will Lyons, who is a master at making glass gilding and like the gold leafing, like signs, and we're able to work together on that signed the frontage, which was really special to me to be able to work with him as a friend, and also he's just incredible at what he does. Like fucking.
I feel like going into a tattoo shop for a lot of people, can be intimidating or mysterious or a bit of like a magical moment or whatever. And it's like if your experience can start from the second you walk in the door before you even get to the counter, then that's an epic shop in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's like, the experience at Thanks definitely starts from when you first get to the front of it. And then you go down, and even like some of the coolest shops are basement level shops, like Frith Street and stuff. You know, like
when the idea came about moving it to this space, I was like, what do I do in Sydney? And pretty much everywhere I like to eat, drink, and like hang out was all basements. Like all the clothing shops we go to, it was weird that we was like, why wouldn't we not be in a basement? Everything I do in Sydney basically is in a basement.
Shady Pines.
Shady's is fucking amazing. It's good friends of ours. Hubert's, like the list goes on for Sydney. Ramming Rascals is fucking basement. It's like everything's in a basement, and it's kind of strange that most of my favorite locations or favorite places to haunt are in basements. So yeah,
that's sick. And from there, obviously being on Oxford Street, that's sort of like the Mardi Gras goes down there. It's sort of like the gay hub of Sydney in a way, Oxford Street.
So Oxford Street's been it's been on its last legs for a second the last few years, but it's getting like rebuilt at the moment, which is pretty exciting with these. There's 3 buildings on the Woolloomooloo side of the street that are getting revamped or redone. With some really exciting sort of businesses going to be in them as well. So as much as it used to, when I used to come to Sydney, the Oxford Street was banging. It was always going off there. It was a good party, good vibes, and it slowly did decay a little bit, but it's coming back. So we're really excited. We're excited to be where we are now in this new location with the prospect of what's coming as well. So
definitely
pretty cool.
And what better location to be in? Like recently, this year's Pride Month or whatever, you guys did like you did a 24-hour.
Tried to for 24 hours.
24-hour tattoo.
I think I was about an hour short of it, and I recently gone sober before that attempt.
That makes it harder.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was in for, but I was pretty delirious by the end of that. And I kind of, it was probably better for the clients, I think. But and I might have got distracted with if I was drinking, but it was fun. And that's the thing about the area too. We're trying to be a part of the community. We really respect where we are, and we're so fortunate to be in such an iconic area of Sydney that we really want to be a part of the community. And before moving to that location, even I went around to local businesses that I became friends with, because we were in the other location for 5 years before moving.
Yeah.
We had a good little relationship with some shops. I was like, what should I do? Should I shut down? Should I move to a new spot? COVID had obviously happened at the time as well, which we opened up in the second location on the second reopening of Sydney, of New South Wales. And they were just also supportive, like, don't go, mate, this is going to happen. Like, once these buildings get redone, there's going to be so much here. You kind of, you've spent your time here building up, like, stay. So that was really cool that we had the support of the local community, local businesses. And we want everyone to know that who we are, what we're doing. We want to also not take, we want to give as well. That's the idea of it as well.
So, like, using tattooing as a vehicle for doing community sort of like projects and stuff like that, like how, I guess, like what difficulties do you find in sort of like incorporating charity or collaboration into tattooing?
Well,
it's not straightforward?
It's pretty straightforward for us. We like the people that I work with, that I surround myself with, they're all pretty giving people as well. They're happy to help, or not happy to help, they're happy to give back. So
cool. I
think we're all so fortunate to have such a cool job and be in a career that most of us probably didn't expect to have either. Tattooing has always been that thing where you kind of think it's probably out of reach, and once you try, you're going to get some knockbacks before you generally get to the door opens for you. So everyone's appreciative of that. So to give back a little bit is not a hard thing to do for us, I think. So.
Yeah, I think like using tattooing in order to, align yourself with charities and raise funds for stuff, at the end of it costs you like a little bit of money in terms of like materials to do it, but then it's just mostly time. And then it's kind of like, well, are you willing to dedicate your time to doing something?
I think it's cool too because the vehicle that you use, you attract people that are the similar people that want to. They maybe don't want. They might not have wanted to get a tattoo that day, but they want to give, so they're going to come get a tattoo to support what you're doing. So
yeah,
that's a nice thing to be able to sort of align yourself and meet some people that have a similar sort of passion for what you're maybe raising awareness for that day or whatever it is.
Yeah, and then the tattoo is a reminder for them as it's part of the cause.
Yeah,
it's like people buy a T-shirt to support a charity. It's like
sure, definitely
not going to lose it.
No, maybe. Sometimes you lose your shirt off your back. Who knows?
So this leads me to the project that you're currently working on called In Pieces Together.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
All right. So this is a pretty cool project that I'm working on with the Chumpy Pullen Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really fortunate enough to know Ben Johnston, he's like the board member of the foundation. His brother recently just did the longest surf in history, Blake Johnston. So he surfed, I don't know the exact figures, but 40 hours plus, like surfed 500 waves in that time. And
Jesus.
he raised a good chunk of money for suicide support, which was, that was the first thing. When I saw that on TV, I was like, man, that's fucking cool. Like I would really like to potentially do something similar. And my idea was to do a world record. They've been around for a few times. I think other tattooers have had like the most tattoos made in an hour in a 24-hour period, and I was like, I'll give that a go. And that's also the reason why I tried to do the 24-hour. I actually wouldn't have been that good at it, I don't think. But anyway, Ben came to the shop and I approached him really quickly, a very quick pitch, and I said, hey mate, I want to do a world record. He said, mate, cool idea, but I think once the record's done, it's sort of over. There's not much legs to it after that. How about we try and develop a different concept that maybe has, a bit more legs to it? And he came to me with this idea. I can't remember the finer details of it, but I believe he made up the idea of taking a design and selling pieces of it off or auctioning it off or something. From there, we went to a full back piece that I'd previously drawn up for a client that it didn't work he had a cover up that didn't quite cover. So I had this cool back piece of a battle royale that I'd drawn up that I wanted to tattoo, and we've sectioned that into 251 puzzle pieces. So they're about 2.83 centimeters in square. Yeah. With obviously like you got the little knobs or the bits taken out of it, and we're tattooing them individually on 251 people.
That's crazy.
So you get a small piece of the back piece, so it's a small piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
We're going to tattoo them all, take photographs, and then we're going to re-merge them all into one big design. And that came about so quickly that I couldn't believe it. The guys hit me back in, I think it was in like from the moment of the pitch to 3 days time, I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of amazing creative guys just talking to me what we're doing. And I was like, fuck, all right, this is happening. We're doing it. And it's all started coming about. So the website was made. The whole process is starting to come about right now. So I've tattooed about, I think 11 now. I did a few on my leg just to see if it would work. And
in terms of like taking a photo of the tattoo and putting them back together?
Correct, yeah. So I tattooed 4 individual pieces that connected on from the puzzle separately on my leg, upside down in different directions so that I could take the photo, we'd cut it out and we'd put it all back together and overlay it onto the original design to see if it actually worked, and it did work, which is, so I think we were in a position where we dived into the deep end and we're like, I'm like, I don't even know if this even.
You have to figure it out.
Like I've got to work out if it works. And so there's a few minor tweaks we had to do, but we got there and then now it's all starting to happen. So I don't know, maybe 15 pieces into tattooing them so far. And once we get them all done, we'll see how the result does come out. Hopefully we'll get there and all 251 pieces will come back together and make a beautiful picture.
So what's the Chumpy Pullen Foundation?
Okay, so it's in honour of Chumpy Pullen, who was an Australian snowboarder. He unfortunately passed away, I think, about 2 years ago. And I didn't have the privilege of meeting him. I have a lot of mutual friends that speak so highly of him. The foundation is, it's kind of a blanket foundation. It doesn't have a clear direction on exactly one topic or one sort of, say, issue that it's trying to raise money for. It's open to do whatever it can for whatever. It has one underlying sort of direction of helping kids with winter sports, obviously from his background, and Blake used suicide support. He was unfortunately affected by suicide from his father. So was Ben, and I was also in a similar position when I was young. My father, he attempted suicide when I was 11, and the foundation, it's like an overall sort of the father figure for the whole, for my small part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so when my father was when he attempted suicide, I felt like it left a pretty obviously a big effect on my life. He survived the attempt. His father didn't, and he'd learnt something from his father. My father also tried it, and I think when I young adult times, it was something that I also had some tendencies towards, and I just want to try and help. The idea of my direction is to try and raise some money to support people that have been affected by suicide, that might need some help with guidance and counselling or whatever it is, but we're not sure of the exact direction where it is, but we just want to support the people that are affected by suicide.
Yeah, like family members or friends that are sort of left in the wake of it.
Definitely. I feel like children is definitely my passion. I got 2 kids, and I feel so sorry for kids that have to go through it. And me as a young kid in the 90s, support wasn't maybe there as much as it is now, but I think it's always something that's maybe overlooked sometimes, the survivors or the victims of suicide, touching them. It can be really pretty something that's maybe overlooked at times. People need to sort of address and maybe help out sometimes.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a subject where people feel awkward talking about it too.
Sure.
So trying to, I guess, in a way, remove the stigma of the conversation.
Yeah, we want to open dialogue for sure and get people talking. And if I can get anyone talking and getting them to sort of change the dialogue or their language on just how they communicate it, or just take the stigma and the shame away from it too. It's not shameful, and it's not easy for people that are left behind with the questions that they have and not having answers, and they need to sometimes just get a bit of help to help out with them moving forward from such a traumatic sort of experience.
And I guess doing the puzzle pieces as well, it's sort of like everyone is playing a small part in a bigger thing, part of a bigger conversation.
Sure.
They're all contributing to it, and then they're telling their friends. I think that you said that's kind of the aim, where it's sort of like they get a piece, then they encourage their friends and their circles to donate to the cause as well.
So you purchase your tattoo, and then we're going to give you the avenues then to raise. I think it's called Raisey. I think Raisely or something is the platform. Right. But you can then ask your community, would you like to donate to me as well? And that's just to help the foundation make as much money as possible, so we can direct that money into somewhere that's going to best suit the cause that we're trying to achieve on it. So we're going to do that. We're going to have just a chance when you get your tattoo, you're going to be able to have your chance to tell your story, and your story might be like not directly affected by suicide. It might be very much so, but it's up to you if you want to do it anonymously, or if you want to put your name to it. But that's what we're trying to do ultimately, is just to talk.
Yeah,
get people having a chat, and just because sometimes I guess, and it's hard to talk sometimes, or even to talk to your mates and bring up that subject to your mates if you need to talk, because it has got that taboo around it, So if you can have a chance to have an outlet, and most people that we've worked with so far in the foundation that have had that opportunity to talk to the camera and give their story, they've come out of it feeling quite positive, and they get that chance to sort of, I guess, even heal a little from it.
It's one of those things where I feel like people that have been affected by it, or know someone that's been affected by it, it feels quite isolating in a sense where it's like, oh, this has happened to me and my family or whatever. And because no one's talking about it, you don't realize just how many people have a similar experience as well. So it's
unfortunate. You can struggle to find someone that's not affected by it in some way, or has a story that's evolved around it.
Just so crazy that it feels so isolating, while it's such a broad thing, and everyone's kind of experienced it in some way, shape, or form, and everyone's just not talking about it.
Yeah, and I think with the tattoo element into it, it's such a healing thing. Memorial tattoos are such a big part of tattooing, always have been. It's a cool thing to bring into that as well. So tattooing helps a lot of people grieve and heal as well, especially if people have some some traumatic things, I sometimes find that tattooing really is a bit of a band-aid for them and makes them feel a lot better.
Definitely. How many pieces have you done so far to date?
Don't know exactly the number. I think we're only up to, it's just started, maybe 11 or 12 pieces. And it's funny too, because like obviously we have a set timeline that we want to sort of stick to if we can, but when a person comes in to get tattooed, I've learned this quite quickly that they really want to have a chat. So it's sick. I get to talk to them and have a little talk, find out about them really quickly, like tattooing always does. But this way we have such a mutual thing to talk about. We can really get a few little, we just find ourselves fucking having a great time. So
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. It's sort of like once that little barrier of awkwardness is over, then you can almost like reminisce on like what that person meant to you as well. Oh, for sure. And it's like a way of remembering them in a positive way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's on the website you can go and you can see the puzzle, what pieces have been taken.
Yeah.
You can pretty much call dibs on which piece you want.
That's right, yeah. The guys have worked hard on this to get this so it's a point where you can see the whole design and just click on the one tile that you want. Yeah. And then get to purchase that. So it's pretty special. And that's a plan. That's a foundation now we have to take it further. We want this to go from the one design we've got now into even further. So ultimately, we've got 3,000 pieces in mind to do. Mine's 251, which is a very small part of the big picture. Yeah. And we want to maybe go to some other artists, approach them and see if they're willing to participate in it. And yeah, so now that we've got this, once we get this first one out of the way, we'll know exactly what it takes and have like sort of all the kinks sort of worked out, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. And you were saying with the pieces, they kind of, you outline the perimeter of the piece with like a really light grey wash.
Light, yeah.
Where it's almost like once it's healed or like once you're assembling the picture of the Battle Royale again, that's not as noticeable. So even in a way, there's parts of that puzzle that don't have an image on the inside of it because it's outside of the thing. So I think even that, for people that maybe would never have considered themselves to get a tattoo as well. It's like, it's your way of getting a tattoo, being part of the cause and, not having to necessarily have an image. It's like the outline will kind of...
That's the fun part about it. You get these different images, like, because it's a big picture and it's only getting a small part of it. Some of them are so intricate with scales or the eyes of the three characters in the image, or you just get maybe a section that's got nothing in it, but... Yeah, you can, if you're not interested in committing to a full tattoo that's black and it's got all the grey shadings in it, you can just get that part. And then if you don't want to get a tattoo at all, you can obviously just help donate and help out the cause in that way as well.
Yeah, the cool part of it being a tattoo as well, it's like you'll always be somewhere and there'll just be that nosy person that'll be like, what is that?
Yeah.
And then by them going, what is that? Yeah, you're starting the conversation and you're talking about the project.
And we always say it's funny, you don't know, maybe one day you'll meet someone that's got the connecting piece that you're like, whoa, shit.
Sick.
Like, you're that number and I'm this number, and they work out. You get an actual puzzle piece that's got the etching on it. So you have to be able to have that and you have your number on it. So you know what number you are and who knows who you might meet that has the connecting pieces on it, which is pretty cool as well.
That's so cool.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So like you said, the scope is to get more people involved all over the world and be part of a bigger picture in a literal sense.
Yeah.
Like how have you found sort of bringing this to fruition? You said it happened like pretty quick.
It happened quickly. We haven't even the launch is still pretty soft at the moment, even as we speak. But the feedback we're getting is incredible, and like I don't know, like I'm amazed to be a part of this. I'm really humbled by it because the concept of it, from Ben's perspective, to bring it to me with the change of what I first approached him with, I was just like, man, it's such a unique thing, and I could be wrong 100%. There's a lot of things that happen in the world that I don't know about, but to my knowledge, I haven't seen it done before.
Yeah.
There's like, the cartoon characters with the flip book sort of style ones done. There's some other things done. This is maybe something that hasn't been done before. It's just the start of, a new sort of way of seeing a design. But
yeah, it's like participatory tattooing in a way.
And it's fun to look at piece of a back piece that's this big and concentrate on just that for the moment and not even have to worry about the rest of the day. Instead of spending a whole day on one big picture and looking at it from a direct drive such a far back. I can't wait to see them all together and be able to see maybe the different shadings and stuff.
Everyone that gets one of those little pieces just tells people they have a back piece.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You do have a part of a back piece. Yeah, it's like, what's that? That's the start of a back piece, or it's a bit of a back piece. Yeah, yeah. And the battle royale too, which it's about the struggles of life, and so like the three characters in it, the dragon, the snake, and the eagle are obviously all apex predators or apex sort of aggressive or whatever.
Yeah.
Every time you think you're on top, maybe something else is coming to get you. It's just those life struggles, so it's very fitting to I guess the context of the message that we're trying to say as well.
Definitely. I feel like for tattooers as well, like using their platform on social media where they might have a bunch of followers or whatever, or using their time, their skills to be able to work with a cause in a way. Yeah. So it was like super rewarding. Yeah. Is it? Yeah, I guess.
I'm getting a lot out of it too. Like that's not to be able to work with the people I get to work with, be able to engage with 251 people and talk to them. Like it really is something special for me. And I'm getting to heal a lot from my experience through these people as well. I'm generally taking something from each person, and it's helping me a lot from help heal my soul and just to grow forward and become a better person, and that sort of thing too. So yeah, I'm pretty honoured to be able to do it.
have there been like groups come in and like a couple of people getting them together?
Yeah, we've been singular so far. Oh, no, actually, sorry, that's a lie. I did a father and daughter the other week, which was really cool. And that's the thing too. I guess the stories everyone has to share. It's just such a it's a big picture to it. There's a lot of people that are involved in the process of it all. So
I can definitely see like a group of friends coming in, doing it as like a as a friendship group to commemorate their mate.
And I tattooed one evening at a friend's house, and a good friend of ours suffered from suicide and passed away, and the night after the fact, we tattooed at the house for a fair few hours, just doing like a little tattoo memorial tattoos, and it was really special for me. The person that did it was real close to me and really supportive, and that helped me as well to be able to do that night, and give to my friends that were suffering and hurting something to sort of take away from that experience and help them, and whatever else too. So yeah, tattooing's pretty special in that way too. It's very much it's
cool. It has that sort of magical sort of power in a way where it
like brings you together.
Yeah. People get tattooed for so many different reasons, and like memorial tattoos are huge, and in a way people feel like that's something that connects them to that person. That's permanent. Definitely. They're not going to lose it. It's not going to break or anything. Yeah. They've got that. They carry it with them forever.
Oh, definitely.
I remember one time there was a guy that passed away where I apprenticed, and before his funeral, his wife and his daughters all came in to get the same Celtic knot that he had tattooed. And they just wanted to have that on them as a part of their grieving process.
Yeah, totally.
And then when they booked in, I was worried because I can be a little bit awkward around people when they're emotional.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's autism.
Diagnosed.
But like sometimes if like, someone can get a tattoo and it can be really like profound for them in that moment, they might cry or whatever. And I'm like, fuck, what do I do? Is it weird to hug them? Is that unprofessional? I didn't know how to handle those kind of situations. And then so when it was booked in, I knew what they were getting it for and all that sort of stuff. And I was sort of like nervous, because it's so important to them. It's not just, you're doing a panther on a guy's forearm, I got to not fuck this up. And it's like, how do you sort of keep a light ssort of mood and make it a positive experience for them?
I think just being honest is the best thing and everything. Just if you're honest to them and, just because you should be honoured to have that opportunity to help them go through the process as well. And I don't think you can do too much wrong. And, no matter what, if your intentions are right, you're always trying through, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
So, yeah.
I feel like whenever you get to do it, like you said, it's a huge honor to be able to do that for someone. Well, do you want to give a quick shout out to the crew at Thanks?
Yeah, for
as
sure.
well as the website, the project?
So I'm fortunate enough to work with some pretty amazing people. Spent a long time sort of like, at Thanks and just sort of building it slowly. So we haven't actively gone out and seeked too many tattooists to come work with us. So it's pretty special to have like the people that do work with us all the time. And so we've got Goat Lumps, Nina, who works with us. She's been with us for quite a while now, originally from Melbourne, come up to Sydney with us. And then we've got Tom Payne, who does great like lowbrow sort of style stuff, like the cheese king of the world. Phoebe Steele, who I love dearly, she's been working with me now for 3 years and has apprenticed at the shop, and she's kicking goals like no one else. Amazing, just the cleanest, greatest tattoos, great attitude towards tattooing. And then we've got Nug as well, who also works with us now. He does like a good one-shot Japanese style tattoo. He's progressing, always trying to do bigger style stuff and doing some really nice big dragons at the moment, which I'm enjoying to get to watch, be created at the shop. Shal works with us as well part-time now. So he's so busy with all of his extra work, painting, mural, and then also his bands and stuff. He's taken a step back from tattooing a little, but he's going to be coming in through every so often to help out. Do his little tattoos. Once a month or something, he'll book out a day and everyone will be able to come get their tattoos off him then. So, yeah, pretty lucky, man. The shop's in a space that I'm really proud of, and I love going to work every day and getting to be around some real good people that are creating cool tattoos. And
makes all the difference.
Mate, it's all it's about. I spend a lot of time there, so it's nice to have some people I can really enjoy being around. And then for the project, check out inpiecestogether.com. You can go on there and go through the tabs and learn more about it, purchase a tattoo, book your tattoo, just donate if you're into it. But check it out and just see what you think, and any feedback from that would be greatly appreciated.
It's very cool. I'm definitely going to get a piece.
Appreciate it.
With nothing in it.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm a puss.
Yeah. That's funny. You're not liking getting tattooed anymore.
Fuck no, man. That's too much.
I got one last Sunday.
Did you?
Yeah. Just a little blast over my arm by Dan Galloway.
Cool.
Yeah, the king of the mountain. Gave me a tattoo. It was cool.
Well, Gummy, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, man.
Really appreciate you doing the podcast.
Well, I appreciate it.
Cheers. This podcast is recorded at Stupid Old Studios here in Melbourne. It's amazing space. You can come here and record audio, video, podcasts, and so much more. Check them out, stupidoldstudios.com.